Welcome to the Joe Cohen Show. Join me as I share my experience with biohacking and invite top health experts to explore the latest technology, supplements, research, and resources for optimizing your body and brain. What do you think? What are like some of the top recommendations to closing the leaky gut or counteracting these food sensitivities as instead of, as opposed to just staying away from these foods? What are the things somebody could do besides butyrate? Because I think that's my favorite, by the way, resistant starch and butyrate. Uh, but I talk about that a lot, so I feel like people already know about that. You also talk about it a lot. Besides that, what do you feel like some of the top things somebody can do to counteract these food sensitivities?
Well, avoidance is quite frankly number one. You
Of
can,
course.
I make compounds that seal a leaky gut, and they're really good at it. But the problem is you can seal your leaky gut, but if you keep swallowing razor blades, then you're just going to slice it open every day.
Right.
I make compounds that absorb lectins, and other people do, and there are lectin absorbing foods. Okra is a phenomenal food for absorbing lectins. Everybody ought to be eating more okra, in my humble opinion. Uh, One of the problems with resistant starches that the Sonnenbergs from Stanford have shown is that you could eat all this resistant starch and fiber, and they have shown that unless you have precursors, other short chain fatty acids, you will never make beauty. And again, that's one of the real eye openers of their studies. And I've come to agree completely with them. There's these missing pieces that you got to provide for the assembly line. And quite frankly, you can swallow all the butyrate in the world, and it's not going to get to where it needs to go. And that's why I made a nano encapsulated butyrate. Or
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
yeah, and that's actually why it works. And I've had the scientists from Pendulum Life with Akkermansia and their butyricum bacteria. And
Oh, I
we
just
all,
bought that. That's interesting. Yeah, the
they're,
C butyricum.
yeah, it's a big, it's it's a big deal. You really need Akkermansia to assist it in establishing a niche. So, and that's the beauty of the Human Microbiome Project. I mean, we didn't even know these guys existed, until 2006, and the Microbiome Project finished in 2017. And and now we know that each day we learn something new.
100%. My 2 cents, just based on I've been doing experiments on myself for like 10 years, more, 16
Good for
years.
you, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, so just, the things that helped me the most were resistant starch, um, niacin, tryptophan, fish oil, and, I think TUDCA, also was one of them. So,
Glad you brought up Tudka.
yeah. What do you think of those?
I take Tudka every day. I have for years. Recently read a book about a Japanese man who kind of single-handedly saved the Akita breed from extinction after World War II. And as an interesting aside, the Akitas are used as bear hunting dogs in the snowy Japan, and they go out and hunt bears, and Akitas can actually fight a bear. And the
Oh,
reason they go
interesting.
hunt bears is they want the bear gallbladder. In Chinese medicine, bear gallbladder is one of the highest prized foods for longevity. And lo and behold, Tudka is bear bile. Now, all Tudka now is produced without killing bears. But there's, and we just talked about this on my podcast with Pendulum. There's now really cool evidence that these bile acid metabolites, like to, are unique in super old people. And that some of these bile acids, like TUDCA, have amazing anti-inflammatory properties in the brain, and that
Mm.
these bile acids circulate into the brain. And so who would know? I mean, my goodness, bear gallbladder is revered in Chinese medicine, and then you go, "Oh, I see. No wonder it's so popular. No wonder you wanna go kill a bear."
So take me through what, just very briefly, this arenasin A and some of the other compounds in lion's mane that are particularly
Mhm,
interesting and what they do that is unique, right? So
mhm.
Uh, BDNF is gonna be like every other herbal substance it's gonna do,
Yeah.
not unique. Obviously, the big one for is nerve growth factor, but
Mhm.
is that the main thing? Take me through lion's mane a little bit.
So that's one of the main drivers. If you look at the haricinones, some of them are stimulating NGF synthesis a little bit, but the interesting thing is the haricinones actually make the response to NGF more pronounced. So basically, the endogenous NGF that's already there acting on the TRKA receptor, if that's happening in the presence of the haricinones, then that response of NGF activating TRKA is more pronounced. So basically, fruiting bodies with those haricinones can make you more sensitive to the effects of NGF that's already there. Now, the lion's mane mycelium with the adenosine A, there are a lot of studies on that showing that it induces NGF synthesis. And this is kind of where things get interesting too, because when we came out with the liquid culture mycelium, people were asking, well, is this better than the lion's mane 8-to-1? And the real interesting thing is that they should really be stacked together because 8-to-1 would potentially make you more sensitive to the effects of NGF. And then the mycelium is enhancing NGF synthesis. So the two together should be synergistic. But that's basically the main thing with adenosine A. It is stimulating NGF synthesis. It's also stimulating BDNF synthesis, and it is enhancing norepinephrine levels a little bit. So that's, I think, really cool because there are not a whole lot of plant compounds that modulate NGF. Like you see it with BDNF for some reason, that's very common amongst a lot of plants. NGF is a little bit more rare. But I think there's some other really interesting things going on with some of the other adenosines. So, for example, you have this compound called adenosine S. And what that is doing is it's increasing the level of progesterone and pregnenolone in brain tissue, which is kind of interesting because both of those can have mood boosting properties. So somehow, I don't know how it's doing it. The research isn't totally there yet, but in preliminary research studies, you can see that adenosine S administration then enhances these neurosteroids in the brain.
I think the way that we would quantify it, right? Because I think, we wanna try to quantify these things as much as possible. So, like,
Mhm,
Peter Attia, let's say, is very big into VO2 max because
mhm.
the risk of death from all causes goes up tremendously as your VO2 max is lower, or vice
Mhm.
versa as well. Your risk of death goes down as your VO2 max goes up. And so he's very into that. Where does and for good reason, like he gives an example that, if you smoke, your risk of death goes up, let's say 50% over a 10-year period. But even if you smoke, but you have a high VO2 max, your risk of death is still like your VO2 max is actually more predictive than if you're a smoker, significantly more. And
Yeah.
so, what is like, if someone has a higher epigenetic score or aging
Mhm.
score, what is the risk of death and how does that number compare to VO2 max?
Yeah, so to be honest with you, I haven't done a direct comparison with VO2 max. And the only reason for that is because, quite frankly, it's not even at the top of our list in terms of other comparators. A lot of these other epigenetic age clocks are even better than that. And so I give a good example of one of the algorithms we just created with Harvard. It's called Omic Age. So this is an algorithm we've spent over 3.5 years on with Harvard, and we basically the most accurate death predictor that's ever been created. It's the only death predictor that can predict death with over a 90% confidence level, 90% accuracy level within 10 years. So basically, if we're trying to predict if you will die in 10 years, we can do it so with right around a 91% accuracy. So we can be fairly accurate. To give you, another comparison, chronological age, for instance, just as a general marker, if we knew you were 80 and then just tried to project, that you're past that average life, we would only be correct right around 75% of the time. So for us to be correct, 91% of the time is a significant improvement. And right now, it's one of the best death predictors that's ever been created, including out of any other markers. But I should also mention that to create that, and with DNA methylation alone, we can also predict things like VO2 max. We can also predict things like grip strength, muscle mass, all with just a few drops of DNA. So we can actually start to inform our algorithms with different pieces of other biology. So for instance, we can in our algorithm, we actually do predict smoking status. And some of the best things we also predict are lung functioning measurements, not as similar to VO2, but things like FEV1 or FVC, these lung function measurements, which when we incorporate smoking and these lung function measurements and even other markers like triglycerides, HbA1c, all through DNA methylation, we can get a really big picture of the biology of aging. And that is the most informative to us. And this is really important because as you and I were both talking about, aging is complex, right? There are a million different biomarkers. There are a million different things that change as we get older. And so we really want to capture that full constellation of symptoms and different problems so that we can really predict the outcomes, because that's really what we want to change is what are our risk factors and how do we actually use this data to make ourselves healthier?
Okay, so that's interesting. I mean, bottom line is you're saying that this is more predictive than VO2 max based
Yeah.
on the data you've seen.
Definitely. And by a wide margin. And so we're not talking, 10%, we're talking more like 20% increases in prediction of most age-related disease. The other thing is that generally VO2 max might be predictive of things like all-cause mortality, but might not be as predictive for things like depression or, type 2 diabetes or whatever, kidney dysfunction, right?
Right.
So it might have certain aspects of aging, but it's not the whole thing. And it might be very, very good because generally, those correlations between physical function are really important for determination of overall health.
The way we started with the fasting nutrition, it was mostly at a 5-day fasting mimicking nutrition. This is where we have the most science. And if you want, all this started by there's a longevity institute at University of Southern California, and they had his name is Professor Walter Longo. Probably a lot of your listeners would know Walter. He has the famous longevity diet book, and he's been working for the last 2.5 decades on figuring out the benefits of calorie restriction and fasting. And the big discovery that he had is that if you fast for several days, it was 3 days in mice because their metabolism is faster than humans, and close to 5 days in humans. You win on two big metrics. We know when you fast, there's a metabolic reset, so you lose weight, of course, and it's good for great metabolic markers, inflammation, hypertension, cholesterol, triglyceride, etc. But the thing that's critical is that cellular rejuvenation in autophagy, which now a lot of people have heard that word, and it happens. But this is the big, if you want, news today. Autophagy happens after the second or the third day of fasting, not like most people think, which is I'll skip my breakfast and I'll be in autophagy by hour 16 or 18. You got to induce that crisis in the body and deplete the first response, which is fat and glycogen and neoglycogenesis by the liver. Once that's depleted, then the body's in crisis, tells the cells, go and rejuvenate and start consuming intracellular calories. So the fact that you need at least 3 days to start that process, I mean, we do autophagy every day. It's a natural process that happens, but I'm saying the big kick of autophagy across the body due to the crisis of fasting happens for most people around that day 2 and 3.
How do you go about using self-decode for somebody, right? Let's say they have X issue or whatever, they're trying to optimize some kind of health parameter. How do you go about using self-decode or what's your general process?
Absolutely. So, I think two things for any practitioner, no matter what profession you're doing. You want to figure out what what's the main concern for this person? Why are they seeing me? You have to be very specific in figuring that out. That comes down to having a really thorough intake. And then when you see that individual, asking very specific questions. Because ultimately that's why they're there, right? So that's part of your job. The other part of your job is when you're working with health information, if there's something serious and you come across it, it is now your job to deal with it. So whether that's within your scope, whether it means referring to somebody that has the scope to deal with it, that's the other part of it. So you have to consider both those things. How do you capture that information? So again, having a very thorough intake, and the intake is, we'll touch on many different things. So my intake, we're looking at previous health history, family history, especially when you're looking at genetic information, we'll look at family history, current health history, whether they've had surgeries. There's something called a review of systems. And so you could touch upon each organ system. So for example, let's say they're coming to you for digestive issues. You could ask them, are you constipated? Do you have diarrhea? Do you have flatulence? And so you could ask these things. You could score it if you want to quantify how often or how severe these issues are for those people. So you look at all the symptoms that they may be experiencing, extensive dietary analysis. So there's many different ways to do that. There's tracking devices that we could use that people could send you that information. I like to at least do a 24-hour diet recall in a visit. This way, some people do not have that great of a recollection of what their diet's been like for the last several months. And so 24 hours is usually pretty good, although oftentimes it happens to be atypical. It is what it is. And just general dietary things. So do they have dietary restrictions? Is there certain foods that they have to avoid? Do they have food allergies? That's another really important one. Food sensitivities, distinguishing the two. Stress management, exercise, movement, activity. What does somebody do for a profession, right? Are they sitting all day? Are they on their feet all day? And then you could look at the other types of environmental health things, right? Is there environmental exposures that we should be aware of? Is there like mold exposures or toxin exposures? Or they have a particular dental history? And so you could gather all that information to try to get a full picture of what's going on. So with that, so get all that information. What I'll do is I'll get that information. I'm figuring out from this whole thing, what is the then most important things that I want to touch upon. Self-code is very large. There is a ton of information. There are tons of genetic reports. People that have access to it ahead of time, usually what they're saying is, I don't know what to do with this. This is all these reports. I don't know where to go. I'm seeing smiley faces. I'm seeing sad faces. Like how do I know what's relevant? And so when you have gone through the health history and then you know what things you want to touch on, then you could go that angle. Labs is super important as well. And so what labs have been done? Sometimes they don't have labs. Sometimes they do. The labs can vary. We have conventional labs. It could just be a CBC, a CMP, and lipids, or it could be gut microbiome analysis, or full nutrient panel. There could be all sorts of things. So let me say, working at Self-Decode, I feel like I've seen almost everything. There's nothing that would surprise me at this point that I didn't think could be tested for. So there's a bunch of things to test for. Is it clinically relevant? That's a whole other discussion. But you could look at the information, make the determination. Is this something I want to include in my workup, or is it just extraneous information that's just going to lead us down a path? Which sometimes it does. People come in with their own idea of what they feel like is important and what they feel like is addressed. And your role as a practitioner is to balance that with what you think is relevant. You want to address their concerns, but you also want to address the ones that arise in you as well.
I'm 78, still working, need 8 hours of sleep to function. This person's saying that they wake up at or before 5 a.m. and then they go eat breakfast. They go back to bed, listen to a podcast, and fall asleep again around 8 a.m., getting the 8 hours. So basically, the main issue this person is dealing with is waking up in the middle of the night. They're essentially getting up a little too early and they're still tired. Now, one of the most important things to do for this is, and this is something that I've dealt with as well for a very long time, and I was able to fix it. Number one, the worst thing that you can do is when you wake up at 5 a.m. or 3 a.m. is to open your eyes, and it basically is to open your eyes, right? Because it's very likely that there is some kind of lighting in the room that is going to basically alert you to some degree or another, right? Unless it's completely pitch dark, in which case you won't be able to see where anything is in the room. You will not be able to identify anything in the room. That is pitch dark. And so if you're sleeping with, if you have light in the room, number one, you need, so first of all, I sleep in a pretty dark room, and then I also have a sleep mask, right? And this is like a double protection against light getting into my eyes. So for example, 5 a.m., one reason that this person could be getting up at 5 a.m. is because they don't have a really good, they're getting light, basically like even a small amount of light coming in from outside because of the morning, right? And in the summer, you get some light at 5 a.m. That will be able to wake you up, right? And historically, people have woken up at the right when any kind of light starts coming up. They went to sleep much earlier, let's say 8 p.m., it got dark. Let's say it would get dark at 7 p.m. on average. You go to sleep at 8 p.m. and you wake up at 4 a.m., right? And that kind of makes sense, right? But when you're going to sleep at 11, 12, and then it starts to get light at 5 or 6 a.m., you will get up if your light is not completely screened. Now, again, it's very hard to get all the light out, and so you have to also wear a sleep mask as well, a comfortable sleep mask. So there's a lot of sleep masks out there. You got to make sure that whatever you're wearing is comfortable and that it's not falling off, because if it falls off in the middle of the night, then it doesn't help you with this problem. So that's number one. Number two is you want to make sure that you are eating enough calories in the day and that you're eating not too far from when you go to sleep. For example, and also carbs will help with this, but essentially if you're, let's say, eating your last meal at 5 p.m., 12 hours later, your body is going to start feeling hungry. So 5 a.m., you're going to start feeling hungry and you're going to wake up and you might get hypoglycemia, and your body has to activate the nervous system in order to counteract a potential hypoglycemia. So if you don't eat too much before, it's a problem. If you eat right before bed, it's also a big problem, right? So you need to eat around 3 hours before you go to bed, and you have to make sure that you're getting enough calories in the day. Meaning the most important thing is timing your dinner, but also getting enough calories in the day, right? Because your body does sense how much, if you're in an energy deficit, but dinner is definitely the most important, and the timing of the dinner is definitely the most important. I also think number three is the nervous system, right? The nervous system starts kicking in based on the circadian rhythm. So if the circadian rhythm is not working well, then you need to, either it's not working well or it could be working well, but it could be that you're going to sleep too late. For example, the thing is, you could decide when you want your circadian rhythm to be if you really are careful with the light. So your brain does not know when it's daytime or nighttime, as long as you have those light cycles well done, right? As long as they're timed and good. So for example, if I'm traveling, let's say, or if sometimes I have to work late, it's not so bad to go to sleep, let's say at 12 or 1 a.m., as long as you're consistent with that and as long as your light cycles fit into that. So that means you really have to bulletproof your light when you're waking up to make sure you're not getting enough light. Yeah, so in terms of the 5 a.m., it could be that the individual is also stressed. And basically, if you're stressed out or if you have anxiety, if your nervous system is overactive, then when the time for the circadian rhythm comes to increase cortisol to activate the nervous system, it could activate too much and then you wake up and you can't go back to sleep. But I find that in general, it has to do with the lighting. So if you're waking up at 5 a.m. and you know that's not enough sleep for you, do not take off your sleep mask. Do not open your eyes. If you open your eyes, you're activating the nervous system, essentially, right? There's light. You have to just keep your eyes closed, keep your sleep mask on, and you will go back to sleep in 15 minutes or something like that. Rather, if you wake up, eat something, first of all, this person's training their circadian rhythm, to be so that they wake up every 5 a.m. Basically, part of the circadian rhythm training is that is when you're eating. So if you train your body to eat at 6 a.m. every day, your body is going to start getting up at 5 a.m. because it knows it's time to eat at 6. This person is doing quite a few this person could be doing quite a few things wrong. I bet they're probably doing they're not I would bet they're not doing the things that I'm saying, because if they were, then they would be sleeping all night. But it also depends on what their genes are. So it's very important to look at the genes as well, because again, it could be different kinds of issues. Is it from anxiety? Is it from the overactive nervous system? Is it from maybe that this person is maybe their quality of sleep is not so good, maybe their deep sleep is not so good? It's something that you really have to look at in a holistic way. Would you have anything to add for that, Dr. Greg?
I think those are excellent points. Absolutely. So the light, big factor. How is your blood sugar at night? A lot of different variants will be implicated in that. A lot of clock gene SNPs could be implicated in your ability to maintain adequate glucose levels. There's variants in the SIRT1 gene that are going to be implicated in that. Also the melatonin receptor. And so let's not forget. So we have to, one, our melatonin, as it increases as it gets nighttime, that's going to keep us asleep. And cortisol, as that increases, is going to wake us up. And sometimes we got to figure out, okay, is that person having too low melatonin or too high cortisol? Are they either spiking when they wake up, the cortisol, or is the melatonin tanking? And again, one reason melatonin would go down is because it's just getting light. Not so. Just my trick is I used to wear an eye patch for a long time, but then I just said, you know what? I'm tired of messing with it. I put up blackout shades. And so if you got really good blackout shades, and I know sometimes it's difficult and you have windows in the ceiling and whatnot, but if you put blackout shades, you can keep it really dark. But then you get into the issue of you don't want some light to get into your room to wake you up when it's appropriate. And so there's lamps that you could get that kind of dim up and get a little bit lighter to wake you up. So that's another thing too. But yeah, so another thing too is when you are waking up at 5 a.m., are you having thoughts about stressful things, your job or some other stressful event? Are you ruminating when you wake up? Because that then feeds back into the anxiety thing. And yeah, and it also the habits. If we get used to doing a certain thing in bed, that's what we get used to. And so the thing we do in bed is we wake up halfway through a sleep cycle and listen to a podcast. That's what our body expects. That's what our mind expects. And it will continue doing it. So you got to break the cycle in order to reset the cycle.
Those are all excellent points. The blood sugar was a great point. 67% of listeners aren't subscribed to the show, so please don't forget to show your support by hitting the subscribe button now. You'll not only be supporting the show, but also investing in yourself and your health journey, all while helping to keep us ad-free.